Welcome to the Hey Gen podcast. Today we're diving into the major changes coming to European travel in 2025. It's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard there's a lot happening. What's the biggest change travelers need to know about?
Well, the biggest thing is the introduction of the ETS visa waiver.
Oh, right.
Starting January 2025, travelers from visa-exempt countries will need to obtain this before entering the Schengen area.
Wait, so even if we're from a country that didn't need a visa before, we now need to apply for ETS?
Exactly. It's like Europe's version of the ESTA in the US.
Mm-hmm.
It costs $7 and is valid for up to 3 years.
That seems reasonable. Do you think people will know to apply ahead of time?
Well, that's a concern. I mean, nobody wants to show up at the airport and be denied boarding, right?
Right. Definitely not. So, the application process, is it complicated?
No, it's pretty straightforward. It takes about 10 minutes online, and most approvals come through quickly.
That's good. But I heard the UK is also implementing a similar system.
Yes. The UK is introducing the ETA system starting January 8, 2025, so travelers will need to apply for that as well.
So if I'm visiting both Europe and the UK, I need to apply for both ETS and the UK ETA?
Yep, double the fun, but at least the processes are similar.
True, but it might be a hassle for some. Do you think it's necessary?
Well, it's all about enhancing security, but I can see how it might deter spontaneous trips.
Exactly. Sometimes you just want to hop on a plane and go.
I hear you, but planning ahead can save headaches, you know?
Definitely. So what's this about digital border checks?
The entry-exit system, or EES, Europe is moving towards automated border kiosks that scan biometric passports.
Oh, interesting. So no more passport stamps?
Unfortunately, no, but it speeds up the process and helps track entries and exits, which is useful.
Makes sense. But what if someone doesn't have a biometric passport?
They'll have to go through manual checks, which might be slower, so it's a good idea to upgrade your passport if you can.
Yeah, got it. So, are there changes related to sustainability?
Yes, airlines are now required to adhere to stricter emissions regulations and promote sustainable aviation fuel.
That's great for the environment, but will it affect ticket prices?
Possibly. Airlines might pass on some costs to passengers, so prices could increase slightly.
I see. Do you think that's fair?
Well, investing in the planet is important, but it's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an incentive to choose trains over planes for shorter trips.
True. Europe's rail network is amazing anyway.
Exactly. And with new passes like the Interrail Flex Pass, it's becoming even more flexible.
That's awesome. I love the idea of customizing my journey.
Me too. It's like building your own adventure.
Haha. So any other big changes?
Yes. Cities like Venice are introducing new tourist taxes and entry fees to combat over-tourism.
Oh, wow. How much are we talking about?
Up to $10 during peak times for day visitors in Venice.
That's significant. Do you think it'll help?
It might reduce crowding and help maintain the city, but it could also make visiting more expensive.
True. Not great for budget travelers.
Yeah, but planning ahead can help. Also, cities are trying to promote sustainability and preserve their heritage.
Makes sense. So, any tips for travelers navigating these changes?
Definitely. Stay informed about new requirements, apply for necessary authorizations early, and consider alternative transportation options.
Good advice. And maybe brush up on local regulations for each city?
Exactly. Some cities have low emission zones or require pre-booking for attractions.
Got it. Well, it's a lot to take in, but I'm excited for the changes.
Me too. Change can be challenging, but it also brings new opportunities.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing all this information.
My pleasure. Safe travels to everyone out there. So, have you heard about all the big changes coming to European travel in 2025?
Oh, you mean like the new visa stuff?
Yeah, exactly. The ETS visa waiver is a big one.
Wait, so what's the deal with that?
So, starting in January 2025, if you're from a visa-exempt country like the US, Canada, or Australia, you'll need to apply for an ETS authorization before you go.
Oh man, another visa process. How much is it going to cost?
It's actually not too bad. Just $7 per application for adults between 18 and 70.
And how long does it last?
It's valid for up to 3 years or until your passport expires.
That's not terrible. So how do you apply?
Exactly. The whole process is online and takes about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Super straightforward.
Nice, but should we apply way in advance?
Yeah, it's recommended to apply at least a week before your trip just to be safe.
Got it. So what else is changing?
They're introducing digital border checks with automated kiosks.
Oh, like those biometric passport scanners?
Exactly.
Right.
If you have a biometric passport, you can just scan it, and it captures your facial data to match with your passport.
That should speed things up at the airport.
Yeah, it'll reduce wait times and enhance security.
But what if someone doesn't have a biometric passport?
Manual checks will still be available, but it's a good idea to get a biometric one if you can. Saves
Yeah,
time.
definitely worth considering. So, are there any changes with air travel itself?
Yep.
Oh,
Europe is pushing for sustainability, so there are stricter regulations on air travel emissions now.
really? How does that affect us?
Airlines have to adhere to new carbon offset requirements and promote sustainable aviation fuels.
Does that mean ticket prices are going up?
Slightly, yeah. Airlines might
Figures.
pass on the costs to passengers.
Well, if it's for the environment, I guess it's worth it.
Absolutely. And for shorter distances within Europe, they're encouraging rail travel.
Oh, I love traveling by train in Europe.
Me too. It's
Yeah.
often faster and more eco-friendly.
Speaking of trains, are there any updates there?
Yes, the rail network is expanding with more high-speed connections.
That's awesome. So, easier to get around by train?
Exactly. Plus, there are new rail passes like the Interrail Flex Pass.
What's that about?
It lets you customize your journey across Europe. Super flexible.
Nice. I need to check that out for our next trip.
Definitely. And don't forget about the digital road tolls.
Oh, what's changing there?
Most EU countries now require digital toll tags or apps.
So, no more stopping at toll booths?
Exactly. It's
Cool.
all automated to make driving smoother.
I'll have to download those apps beforehand.
Yeah, good idea. Prepping in advance saves headaches later.
For sure. So, any changes in health and safety protocols?
Actually, yes. There's an increased focus on health and safety post-pandemic.
Makes sense. What does that entail?
Digital health certificates might be required for certain high-risk areas or events.
So, we might need to show vaccination proof?
Possibly.
Okay.
Also, comprehensive travel insurance is strongly recommended, and some countries might make it mandatory.
Better to be safe than sorry. I'll make sure we have that sorted.
Good plan. And keep digital and hard copies of your health records handy.
Will do. So, what about city-specific rules?
Cities like Paris, Berlin, and Amsterdam are implementing stricter rules to combat over-tourism.
Like what?
Increased tourist taxes on accommodations.
Oh, that might add up.
Yeah, and some attractions require mandatory pre-booking now.
That's good to know. Don't want to miss out because we didn't book ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, low-emission zones are expanding in cities, so if you're driving, your vehicle must meet emission standards.
Good thing we usually use public transport in the cities.
Same here, but it's something to keep in mind.
Definitely. Anything else we should be aware of?
The Entry-Exit System, or EES, is coming into play.
What's that about again?
It replaces manual passport stamping with a digital system that records your entry and exit automatically.
So no more passport stamps?
Nope, it's
Wow.
all digital now.
How does that affect tracking how long we've been in the Schengen area?
You'll be able to monitor your remaining days online.
That's actually pretty handy.
Totally, but overstaying could lead to fines or bans, so we need to keep an eye on it.
Absolutely. Don't want to get into trouble.
Exactly. Regularly checking your Schengen day count is important.
Will do. So, any updates on passenger rights?
Yes, the EU is making refunds and compensation processes more transparent.
That's great. So, if our flight is delayed, we can still get compensated?
Exactly.
Awesome.
For delays over 3 hours, you can claim compensation.
Good to know they're keeping that in place.
Definitely. Just make sure to keep all your travel receipts and communications.
Will do. So, in summary, there's quite a lot changing.
There is, but it's all aimed at smarter, safer, and more sustainable travel.
I'm actually excited about these changes.
Me too.
Yeah.
With a little preparation, our trips should be even better.
Agreed. Time to start planning our 2025 European adventure.
Absolutely.
Right.
Can't wait to explore with all these new systems in place.
It's going to be great. Cheers to future travels.
Cheers. Here's to
Yeah.
new experiences and smoother journeys. Welcome to Hey Gen Podcast. Today we're diving into the big changes coming to European travel in 2025. Let's get started.
I'm super curious about this. What's first on the list?
Well, Europe is introducing the ETS visa waiver system.
Oh,
Which
okay.
will be mandatory for non-EU visitors from visa-exempt countries.
Wait, so even travelers from the US or Australia will need this?
Exactly. Starting January 2025, they'll need to obtain an ETS authorization before entering the Schengen area.
How much is it going to cost?
It's $7 for people aged 18 to 70, and it's
Right.
free for children and seniors over 70.
That's not too bad. How long is it valid?
It's valid for up to 3 years or until your passport expires, whichever comes
Got it.
first.
And how do you apply?
The process is entirely online and takes about 10 minutes. Most applications are approved within minutes, but some may take up to
Awesome.
96 hours.
So, better to apply at least a week before your trip?
Exactly, you don't want to risk any last-minute issues.
Makes sense. What else is changing?
Another big change is the move to digital border checks. European borders are adopting automated kiosks that scan biometric passports.
No more passport stamping?
Right. The Entry-Exit System, or EES, replaces manual stamping. It automatically records your entry and exit, ensuring compliance with the Schengen's
Interesting.
90-180-day rule.
How does that work exactly?
When you arrive, you'll use an automated gate that scans your passport and captures biometric data like fingerprints and facial recognition.
Sounds high-tech. What if someone doesn't have a biometric passport?
Well, manual checks will still be available for non-biometric passports and those needing assistance.
So it's worth checking your passport before you travel.
Definitely. If your passport isn't biometric, consider renewing it to save time at borders.
Good to know. Any changes to air travel?
Yes, Europe is enforcing stricter regulations on air travel emissions. Airlines must adhere to new carbon offset requirements and promote sustainable aviation fuel.
Does that mean more expensive flights?
Probably a slight increase, as airlines may pass on the compliance costs to passengers.
Figures.
But they're also promoting rail alternatives.
Taking the train instead of flying?
Exactly. For shorter distances, trains are often faster, cheaper, and more eco-friendly.
I love European trains anyway.
Me too. Plus, the rail network is expanding with new high-speed connections and options like
That's
the
great.
Interrail FlexPass.
That's awesome. But sometimes flying is just more convenient.
True, but with the environmental impact, it's worth considering alternatives. It's like choosing between fast food and a home-cooked meal.
Haha,
Sometimes
totally.
the slower option is better for you.
Good analogy. Any updates for road travel?
Yes, road toll systems are going fully digital. Digital toll tags or apps are now mandatory in most EU countries.
So no more fumbling for coins at toll booths?
Exactly. It streamlines everything. Just make sure to set up the app or tag before you hit the road.
Will do. What about city-specific rules?
Cities like Paris, Berlin, and Amsterdam are implementing stricter rules to combat over-tourism and promote sustainability.
Like what?
Increased tourist taxes on accommodations, low emission zones where vehicles must meet emission standards or face fines,
I see.
and mandatory pre-booking for certain attractions.
That seems a bit much.
Well, it's aimed at preserving the city's heritage and improving residents' quality of life.
I get that, but aren't these measures discouraging tourism?
They're trying to promote responsible tourism. It's about quality over quantity.
Maybe, but it feels like they're making it harder for regular people to visit. Yeah, I guess you're right. It's frustrating when you can't enjoy a site because of the crowds.
Exactly. It's like trying to read in a noisy room. You
Haha,
can't
yeah.
focus on what you came for.
Fair enough. Any updates on health and safety?
Yes, Europe is standardizing health protocols. Digital health certificates may be required for certain high-risk areas or events, and travel insurance is strongly recommended.
Travel insurance might become mandatory?
In some countries, yes. It's a way to ensure travelers are covered in case of emergencies.
Makes sense. I usually get it anyway.
It's always a good idea. Also, keeping digital and hard copies of your health records and insurance details is smart.
Definitely. So overall, a lot is changing for European travel in 2025.
Yes, but it's all geared towards smarter, safer, and more sustainable tourism.
Do you think these changes will affect tourism numbers?
Perhaps initially, but I think people will adapt. Europe has so much to offer, and these changes aim to enhance the experience.
You're right. With a bit of planning, it shouldn't be an issue.
Exactly. Staying informed and preparing in advance is key.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for breaking this down. It's been really informative.
My pleasure. Hopefully, our listeners feel more prepared for their future European adventures. So, have you heard about the big changes coming to European travel in 2025?
Oh, yeah, it's like Europe's getting a total travel makeover. What's the most significant update?
Well, starting January 2025, the ETS visa waiver becomes mandatory for non-EU visitors.
Right.
It's a big deal for travelers from countries like the US, Canada, and Australia.
Wait, so they'll need a visa now?
Not exactly a visa, but they'll need to apply for an ETS authorization. It's like Europe's version of the US ESTA system.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
How much does it cost and how long is it valid?
It's $7 per application for those aged 18 to 70, and it's valid for up to 3 years or until your passport expires.
Okay,
Kids and seniors over 70 get it for free.
that's not too bad. So how does the application process work?
It's pretty straightforward, entirely online, and takes about 10 minutes. Most approvals come through within minutes, but some might take up to 96 hours.
Good to know.
Yeah,
Probably best to apply at least a week before traveling, just in case.
exactly.
Right.
No one wants last-minute surprises at the airport.
Absolutely not. So what about these new digital border checks?
Oh, that's exciting. European borders are moving towards digital passport checks with automated kiosks.
Like those biometric scanners?
Yes, if you have a biometric passport, you can use these kiosks to speed through security.
That's awesome. But
Yeah.
what if someone doesn't have a biometric passport?
Manual checks will still be available, but I'd recommend renewing to a biometric one if possible. It saves a lot of time.
Makes sense, and it's probably more secure too.
Exactly. Plus, with the new entry exit system, or EES, they'll replace manual passport stamping altogether.
Really?
Yeah.
How will they track entries and exits then?
The EES will automatically record your entry and exit using biometric data like fingerprints and facial recognition.
High-tech stuff.
Right.
Guess overstaying your welcome just got harder.
Definitely. Overstaying could lead to fines or even entry bans, so it's crucial to keep track.
Good to know. So, can travelers check how many days they have left?
Yes, the system allows you to monitor your remaining days in the Schengen area online.
That's super helpful. No more guesswork with the 90-180-day rule.
Exactly, it makes planning much easier.
Now, I heard something about sustainability impacting air travel. What's going on there?
Europe is really pushing for greener travel. Airlines now have stricter emissions regulations and must promote sustainable aviation fuel.
Does that mean ticket prices will go up?
Slightly, yes. Airlines might pass on some compliance costs to travelers.
Bummer, but I guess it's for a good cause.
Absolutely. Plus, there's a bigger push for rail travel within Europe, especially for regional trips.
That's cool. Trains are a great way to see the countryside.
Definitely. And they're often faster and more eco-friendly for short distances.
Speaking of trains, any updates on rail travel improvements?
Yes, Europe's rail network is expanding with new high-speed connections. They've also introduced options like the Interrail Flex Pass.
What's the Interrail Flex Pass?
It's a customizable rail pass that lets you plan your journey across multiple countries.
Oh,
Great
nice.
for flexible travel plans.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Anything new with road travel?
Road tolls are going fully digital. Many EU countries now require digital toll tags or apps.
So no more fumbling for coins at toll booths?
Exactly. It's all automated, which makes driving a lot smoother.
That's convenient. Just need to remember to set it up beforehand.
Right. Downloading the necessary apps before your trip is key.
Got it. Now what about city-specific rules? I've heard some cities are getting stricter.
Yes, cities like Paris, Berlin, and Amsterdam are enforcing stricter regulations to combat overtourism and promote sustainability.
Like what?
Increased tourist taxes on accommodations, implementation of low-emission zones where only certain vehicles can enter, and mandatory pre-booking for popular attractions. They're really aiming to manage crowds and pollution.
Makes sense, but travelers need to be prepared.
Absolutely. It's important to research any city-specific rules before you go to avoid surprises.
Definitely adding that to my to-do list. Anything else we should be aware of?
Well, there's an increased focus on health and safety. Europe might require digital health certificates for certain high-risk areas or events.
So like a health passport?
Exactly. And while not mandatory everywhere, comprehensive travel insurance is strongly recommended and in some cases required.
Probably a good idea to have it anyway.
Couldn't agree more. Also, make sure to save digital and hard copies of your health records and insurance details.
Good tip.
Yeah.
Better safe than sorry.
Definitely. Oh, and don't forget about the simplified refunds and passenger rights.
What's changing there?
The EU is making refund and compensation processes more transparent. If your flight is delayed over 3 hours, you're still entitled to compensation.
That's reassuring. Always good to know your rights.
Exactly. Just keep all your travel documents and receipts in case you need to file a claim.
Will do. So, in a nutshell, Europe's really stepping up its travel game in 2025.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
With all these changes, travel should be smarter, safer, and more sustainable.
It might require a bit more preparation, but it sounds like it'll enhance the overall experience.
I think so too. Plus, these measures help protect the destinations we love to visit.
Very true. So, any final tips for travelers heading to Europe in 2025?
Start planning early, stay informed about the new regulations, and embrace the changes.
Great advice. I'm
Yeah,
excited to see how these updates improve travel.
me too. Europe is always evolving, and 2025 is shaping up to be an exciting year for travelers.
Can't wait to pack my bags.
Same here. Here's to new adventures and seamless journeys.
Cheers to that.
Welcome to Hey Gen Podcast. Today we're diving into the essential new rules and updates for traveling in Europe in 2025. Let's get started.
Can't wait to hear about it. What's changing for travelers heading to Europe next year?
So, one of the biggest changes is the introduction of the ETS visa waiver
Oh,
for
really?
non-EU visitors.
ETS? What's that all about?
Yeah, it's the European Travel Information and Authorization System. Starting January 2025, travelers from visa-exempt countries like the US, Canada, and Australia will need to apply for this authorization before entering the Schengen area.
Interesting. How much does it cost?
It's $7 per application for those aged 18 to 70, and it's
Not
free
too
for
bad.
children and seniors over 70.
And how long is it valid for?
It's valid for up to 3 years or until your passport expires, whichever comes
Makes
first.
sense. So the application process, is it complicated?
Actually, it's entirely online and takes about 10 minutes. Most applications are approved within minutes, but some might take up to 96 hours for review.
That's pretty efficient. So we should apply at least a week before our trip, right?
Exactly, just to be safe.
Got it. What else is new?
Well, European borders are embracing digital technology with biometric passport checks. Automated kiosks will scan your passport and facial data, reducing
That's
wait
neat.
times.
So if we have a biometric passport, we can breeze through, right?
Exactly, but manual checks are still available for non-biometric passports and those needing assistance.
That's good to know. But wait, what if my passport isn't biometric?
Then you might face longer lines. I'd recommend checking your passport and renewing it if it's not biometric.
Makes sense. Thanks for the tip.
No problem. Another big change is the Entry-Exit System, or EES. It replaces manual passport stamping for non-EU travelers.
How does that work?
The system automatically records your entry and exit using biometric data,
I
ensuring
see.
compliance with the Schengen 90-180-day rule.
So it tracks how long you've been in Europe.
Exactly. And overstaying could result in fines or even entry bans.
Wow, that's serious. We need to be careful then.
Absolutely. Regularly check your Schengen day count to avoid unintentional overstays.
That sounds a bit invasive. Is all this biometric data secure?
Well, I understand your concern, but the EU has strict data protection regulations. The goal is to improve security and prevent illegal stays.
I suppose that's true. It's just, important that our data stays safe.
Absolutely, data privacy is crucial. But with proper safeguards, it should enhance travel convenience without compromising privacy.
Okay, fair point. So what's next?
Well, Europe is enforcing stricter air travel regulations to promote sustainability. Airlines must adhere to new carbon offset requirements and promote sustainable aviation fuel.
Does that mean ticket prices will go up?
Slightly, yes. Airlines may pass on the cost of compliance to passengers.
Maybe it's time to consider trains for regional travel.
Exactly. There are greater incentives for rail alternatives within Europe now. For short distances, trains can be faster, cheaper, and more environmentally friendly.
That's great, but what about the rail networks? Are there any improvements?
Yes, Europe's rail network is expanding with more high-speed connections. Plus, there's the new EU-wide Interrail
Oh, that's
Flex
interesting.
Pass, which allows travelers to customize their journeys more flexibly.
Perfect for spontaneous trips.
Absolutely. And on the roads, toll systems are becoming fully digital. You'll need digital toll tags or apps in most EU countries now.
So no more fumbling for coins at toll booths?
Exactly. It streamlines the process but requires some planning ahead.
Got it. I'll make sure to download the necessary apps before driving in Europe.
Great idea. Also, major cities like Paris, Berlin, and Amsterdam are implementing stricter local rules to combat over-tourism and promote sustainability.
Like increased tourist taxes?
Yes, increased levies on accommodations, and some cities have low-emission zones where vehicles must meet certain standards or face fines.
Interesting. That could make renting a car tricky.
It might. In some cases, public transport or walking are better options within cities.
Makes sense. But don't you think all these rules might discourage tourism?
Well, perhaps initially, but they're aimed at promoting sustainable tourism and
True.
preserving the destinations for future visitors.
I can see that. It's important to protect these places.
Exactly. Also, the EU is simplifying refunds and passenger rights. Flight delays over 3 hours still qualify for compensation, and train cancellations offer full refunds or alternatives.
That's reassuring, but sometimes it's such a hassle to claim compensation.
I agree it can be frustrating, but the
Yeah,
processes are becoming more transparent. Keeping all your travel receipts and communications helps if you need to file a claim.
good point. I'll make sure to keep everything organized.
Lastly, there's an increased focus on health and safety. Digital health certificates may be required for certain high risk areas or events, and
Oh, I
comprehensive
see.
travel insurance is strongly recommended.
Are any countries making travel insurance mandatory?
Some might, so it's wise to have it. Plus, it's always good to be prepared for any unforeseen circumstances.
Absolutely. Better to be insured than to face huge medical bills abroad.
Exactly. So, saving digital and hard copies of your health records and insurance details is a smart move.
Definitely. So, overall, Europe is making a lot of changes to enhance security, sustainability, and traveler convenience.
Yes, that's right. While these updates require some preparation, they ultimately aim to improve the travel experience.
You know, some of these changes sound a bit overwhelming, but I guess it's all for the better.
I understand it might seem like a lot, but with a little
Yeah,
planning, you'll navigate it smoothly.
true. And it's exciting to see how travel is evolving.
Absolutely. Europe in 2025 will be an interesting place to explore.
Can't wait to plan my next trip. Thanks for all the info.
You're welcome. Happy travels.